Every NHL team carries something: hope, heartbreak, or pure delusion. But for your team, it's about to get worse. The Bruins think they invented hockey. Original six status, black and gold bravado, and enough arrogance to power a Duncan factory. Their fans preach the code like it's gospel and treat any team that doesn't play like it's 1978 as weak. They'll glorify toughness, scream about hits, and act like finesse is a character flaw. They'll never shut up about Bobby Orr, while ignoring the fact that most of their recent glory came from Tim Thomas going supernova and Brad Marchand licking opponents like a rabid raccoon. Yes, they win games, but they lose grace. Loudly, proudly, and often. And for all that tough guy energy, they might be the softest team when it matters. They had the greatest regular season in NHL history, 65 wins, and blew it to a wildcard team in round 1. Their last 3 deep playoff runs all ended in front of their home crowd in total humiliation. And now that the Bergeron era is over, they're clinging to grit like it can win faceoffs. But let's be honest, the team isn't reloading, they're regressing, with vibes, and no centers. The Big Bad Bruins, more like Big Bad Memories. The Sabres are hockey's answer to a broken vending machine. You keep putting hope in and nothing ever comes out. They haven't made the playoffs since 2011, and somehow they've managed to rebuild 5 different times without building anything. Jack Eichel was supposed to save them. Then he bolted. Ryan O'Reilly literally said he lost his love for the game playing there, and then won a cup somewhere else. Every talented player they touch either regresses, leaves, or becomes elite the second they escape Buffalo. And yet the fans still show up, still scream, still believe. It's honestly tragic. The Sabres are the only team that can go undefeated in vibes and still finish dead last in the division. Every October it's "this is the year," and by December, they're arguing about draft lotteries. The arena plays goal songs like it's 2007. The jerseys are retro, and the results are prehistoric. They're not cursed, they're just terminally mismanaged. Buffalo doesn't need a rebuild, it needs an exorcism. The Red Wings love to remind you they're Hockey Town. Like that branding exercise from 1996 still means something. Yes, they had a 25-year playoff streak. Yes, Yzerman and Lidstrom were legends. But that was 3 lockouts ago. Since then, it's been a steady slide from powerhouse to PowerPoint rebuild. Every year, the Yzer plan gets trotted out like it's gospel. But all it's produced so far is mid-tier free agent signings, endless cap space, and enough patience to make a Buddhist monk snap. Detroit fans still act like they're in the middle of a dynasty, when really they're just a historical landmark with a mediocre record. They'll gas up Moritz Seider and Lucas Raymond like they're Gretzky and Lemieux, but somehow the team still finishes behind the Panthers' B squad. The new arena is beautiful. Too bad the only banners going up are for concerts. This isn't a rebuild anymore. It's a holding pattern disguised as a legacy. Hockey Town? More like History Town. The Panthers spent 25 years as the NHL's witness protection program. Nobody watched, nobody cared, and nobody knew they still existed. They were a franchise built on empty seats, third jerseys, and all-star snubs. Then, out of nowhere, they became everyone's worst nightmare. They don't win the President's Trophy. They beat the team that does. They don't care about your dynasty. They're here to ruin it. Florida didn't just sneak into the playoffs. They kicked the door off the hinges and danced on your logo. But let's not get twisted. This team still has the emotional stability of a raccoon on Red Bull. They went from Dark Horse Cup contender to lost 5-1 to the Blue Jackets in 48 hours. Their fans are finally loud, mostly because they discovered what a second round feels like. And behind the chaos is Matthew Tkachuk, the NHL's king of petty vengeance. Florida doesn't want your respect. They want your tears. And if they don't win the cup, they'll make sure your team doesn't either. The Canadians are hockey's oldest cathedral. Stained glass banners, holy relics, and a fan base that worships the past like it's still winning games. 24 cups. Most of them from an era when the league had 6 teams and goalies wore leather hats. Every draft pick is the next great Hab. Every coach is on a timer, and if you don't speak French, you're already on the hot seat. They don't just play hockey in Montreal, they canonize it. Too bad the on-ice product hasn't matched the sermon since VHS tapes were a thing. Their one recent miracle run in 2021 was a fluke powered by Carey Price and pure chaos, and they immediately tanked the second it ended. The rebuild is progressing, which in Hab speak means no one knows what's going on. But hey, look at our prospects. The Bell Center is packed every night, even if the team can't buy a goal. And the fans? Still shouting about 1993, like it happened last spring. Montreal isn't chasing a cup. They're chasing ghosts. The Senators are stuck in a never-ending rebuild that feels more like a group project where no one showed up. Every year, the hype machine fires up. Young core, underrated roster, playoff dark horse. And every year, they finish with 78 points and a new coach. This team has been one piece away for 6 years. At this point, the missing piece is reality. Fans cling to the idea that this team is about to turn the corner. Problem is, the corner keeps moving. Ownership drama, front office misfires, and vibes-based roster building have made the Sens the NHL's most chaotic science experiment. Brady Tkachuk bleeds for the crest, but the rest of the team bleeds goals. Ottawa keeps promising the future. The problem is, the present is still a mess. The Lightning were built in a lab to ruin your postseason. 2 cups, 3 straight finals, and a roster that was deeper than the ocean. They broke the salary cap in broad daylight, called it strategy, and the league just shrugged. For a while, they weren't just good, they were inevitable. A perfectly engineered machine that made you feel hopeless by Game 2. Tampa didn't just beat you, they buried you quietly with zero emotion. But now, the core is cracking. Vasilevsky's not invincible. The depth is gone, and Stamkos, the captain, the soul, the heartbeat, plays for another team. What's left is a shell with pedigree, trying to fake its way through another wildcard chase. The Lightning are still dangerous, but the fear is fading. They were once the NHL's final boss. Now they're just trying to stay in the game. The Leafs are hockey's richest, loudest, most emotionally unstable soap opera. They've got all the star power, Matthews, Marner, Nylander, Tavares, and still managed to collapse like a Jenga tower in a wind tunnel. 2 playoff series wins in nearly 20 years. And they acted like the dynasty was back. The media spins every practice like it's Game 7. And the fan base flips between cup parade plans and full-blown existential crisis every other week. They light up the regular season like it's a skills competition. Then April hits, and the entire roster short-circuits. Watching the Leafs in the playoffs is like watching someone trying to parallel park a Ferrari blindfolded. High performance, zero control, and a disaster waiting to happen. And yet, the delusion never dies. Leafs fans will tell you they're one move away, right there, or just getting started. Like the last 7 years didn't happen. Every collapse gets blamed on goaltending, coaching, or the moon being in retrograde. Meanwhile, the core keeps cashing in and crashing out. They're not cursed. They're consistent. Consistently overhyped, overpaid, and under-delivering. In Toronto, failure isn't a phase, it's the brand. The Hurricanes are NHL's hipster contender. All analytics, vibes, and storm surges, but no banners. Every year, they're everyone's darling pick to win the cup. Every year, they fall short. The defense is elite, the forward depth is solid, and they play like a well-oiled machine. Until they hit a real goalie or someone who can actually finish a playoff series. They don't lose ugly, they just disappear. Their fans are loud, loyal, and ready to throw hands at anyone who dares question the cult of Rod Brind'Amour. But even the Canadiacs have to admit, this team's allergic to the big moment. They've been knocking on the door for 5 years and still can't break in. At some point, dangerous turns into disappointing. Carolina doesn't need another deep run. They need a damn result. The Blue Jackets have existed for over 2 decades and still feel like an expansion team that just never got the memo. Their biggest achievement? Winning a playoff series 1 time. And their fans talk about it like it was the moon landing. They've burned through coaches, wasted talent, and managed to stay irrelevant in a league that practically begs small markets to succeed. Every time they draft a star, he bolts the second his entry-level contract ends. Columbus is where potential goes to get buried under mediocrity and bad contracts. The front office treats free agency like it's Black Friday, grabbing names they don't need with money they don't have. They fired a coach before he coached a game. Their rebuilds don't rebuild. They just circle the drain in new uniforms. The fans are loyal and deserve better, but the franchise keeps handing them a flaming dumpster and calling it the process. Columbus doesn't need a new coach. It needs a full reboot, with a map, a plan, and maybe directions to the playoffs. The Devils won 3 cups by sucking the joy out of hockey. Neutral zone traps, 2-1 wins, and goalies who made saves look like clerical work. They were the most boring dynasty imaginable, and it worked. But after the Brodeur era ended, the fall-off was brutal. Years of bottom feeding, bad drafting, and rebuilds that felt like they were built out of wet cardboard. They finally have a fast, flashy team again, and the defense is held together with duct tape and denial. Devil fans have been screaming, "Watch out for us," since 2018. And yet, here we are. Another talented roster underperforming. Another season of "we're still young" excuses. Jack Hughes is electric. Nico Hischier is solid. But until they figure out goaltending and stop getting bullied out of playoff rounds, they'll stay in hockey purgatory. They went from the league's most hated winners to one of its softest maybes. The Islanders are the NHL's gritty, blue-collar, nobody-believes-in-us team, and there's usually a good reason for that. Their offense is prehistoric, their power play is a disaster, and their biggest move in the past decade was opening a building with working plumbing. They play hockey like it's a punishment, trap-heavy, soul-crushing, low-event boredom, and when they finally do score, it's off a shin pad and a prayer. Watching the Islanders feels like watching paint dry, while someone screams at you about how underrated it is. The fans are passionate to the point of delusion. They still boo John Tavares like he didn't carry the team on his back for 9 years. They worship guys like Matt Martin and Cal Clutterbuck like they're Hall of Famers. And every offseason, Lou Lamoriello signs someone's dad for 4 years and calls it leadership. They had their shot in the bubble, back-to-back conference finals, and now they're just clinging to structure and memories. The Islanders aren't rebuilding. They're decaying slowly, with defensive responsibility. The Rangers are hockey's ultimate illusion. Glitz, glamour, and hype wrapped around a team that never quite delivers. They have the best goalie. Again, a lineup full of names, and somehow still get outplayed by teams with half the payroll, and none of the drama. Every year it's cup or bust, and every year it's bust, in 6 games or less. They don't rebuild, they reload, which in Rangers speak means throwing $11 million at someone and wondering why the fourth line still can't forecheck. Their fans will tell you they're part of hockey royalty. But one cup since 1940 says otherwise. They act like the Garden's mystique adds goals to the scoreboard. It doesn't. The vibes are expensive. The expectations are nuclear. And when things go sideways, they eat their coaches alive. The Rangers don't lose quietly. They implode in slow motion with the whole league watching. It's not a rebuild. It's a Broadway tragedy on repeat. The Flyers are stuck in a permanent identity crisis. They still think it's 1975. Punching faces, growing beards, and calling it culture. But that swagger doesn't hit the same when you haven't touched a Stanley Cup in almost 50 years. Every rebuild turns into a retool, and every retool turns into another decade of watching gritty hockey with 0 actual results. They'll throw a parade for effort and retire a jersey before retiring a bad GM. Flyers fans are some of the most passionate, loyal, and completely unhinged people in the NHL. They boo Santa, fight mascots, and demand accountability like it's a sport. But deep down, they know the truth. This team is stuck in the mushy middle, not good enough to compete, not bad enough to bottom out. They call it playing the right way, but it looks like pain in orange and black. The Broad Street bullies are long gone. What's left is just broad disappointment. The Penguins are the aging rock band still touring off their greatest hits. Crosby, Malkin, and Letang are legends. No argument. But it's been years since they mattered in the playoffs, and the front office refuses to admit the window's slammed shut. They keep signing washed veterans like it's 2016 and wondering why they're getting dusted by teams with legs. Last year, they missed the playoffs because they couldn't beat the Blackhawks. At home. That's not just bad, that's poetic failure. And yet, the fans still act like they're a threat. They'll scream about cups and legacy while conveniently ignoring that this team has 0 depth in a goalie situation that belongs in the ECHL. Every offseason is a desperate attempt to tape the dynasty back together with duct tape and good intentions. Pittsburgh isn't building a future, they're clinging to ghosts. The rebuild's coming, they just refuse to RSVP. The Capitals spent over a decade inventing new ways to choke in the playoffs, finally broke through in 2018, and have been emotionally hungover ever since. That cup was incredible, no one denies that, but the glory faded fast. Since then, it's been a slow shuffle toward irrelevance, dressed up in red, white, and nostalgia. Now that Ovechkin's passed Gretzky, the mission is officially complete. The team's old, slow, and stitched together with expired cap glue. They're not chasing cups, they're chasing memories. Every loss is forgiven because at least we witnessed history. But let's be real, this isn't a playoff team, it's a traveling Ovi tribute band. Caps fans know what's coming, but they're too loyal to say it out loud. The core is cooked. The prospects aren't saving anyone, and watching this team now feels like watching the final season of a show that should have ended 2 years ago. The scoreboard might lie some nights, but the standings never do. Washington isn't trying to win. They're just trying to make history before the rebuild buries them. The Coyotes finally escaped the desert, not because they found success, but because the NHL got tired of pretending they belonged there. After years of half-empty arenas, bankruptcy drama, and playing in a college rink with 5,000 seats, the league packed them up and shipped them to Utah like a broken appliance. New market, new branding, same mess. You can change the zip code, but you can't erase 2 decades of irrelevance. This team's greatest legacy is almost drafting well. Now they're in Salt Lake City, pretending it's a fresh start, but no one's forgetting how bad this franchise has been. They've had more ownership changes than playoff wins, and more rebrands than meaningful hockey games. The NHL swears it's a new era. Translation, a new jersey, a loud arena, and still a 74-point season. Utah might embrace hockey, but until this team proves it can do anything besides relocate, all they're bringing is baggage. The Blackhawks were a dynasty and a disaster. 3 cups in 6 years made them the league's golden child, but behind the banners was a cover-up so vile it stained everything they accomplished. They went from model franchise to cautionary tale almost overnight, and now with Connor Bedard in town, they're hoping everyone just forgets. But no amount of highlight reels can erase what this team let happen behind closed doors. On the ice, it's a full teardown. They're dressing AHL lineups and calling it development. Bedard's a superstar surrounded by spare parts and question marks. The rebuild will take years, but the PR rehab might take longer. Chicago fans are loyal, loud, and desperate to move forward, but the shadow of what this team was and what it hid doesn't go away with a lottery ball. The Avalanche are the NHL's favorite frontrunners. Lightning fast, loaded with talent, and absolutely unbeatable. Until they're not. 1 cup in 2022 papered over years of playoff faceplants, and now they act like a dynasty in waiting. But the truth? This team's either blowing someone out or falling apart in overtime. Nathan MacKinnon plays like he's fueled by rage and Red Bull. Cale Makar skates like he's glitching through the ice. And the rest of the roster is a rotating cast of who's healthy this week. Their fans went from, we're patient, to we deserve another cup real quick. The top-end talent is terrifying, but the bottom 6 is basically a Craigslist ad. And don't even start on the goaltending. One bad stretch and it turns into a Greek tragedy. Colorado can beat anyone when everything clicks. The problem is, in the playoffs, it never all clicks. The window's wide open, but the cracks are forming. The Stars are built like a championship team. Elite top line, solid goaltending, deep defense. And yet every postseason, they somehow forget how to play hockey. One year they lose because they can't score. Next is because they forget defense exists. They've been to the final twice since 2000 and lost both. One in a bubble, the other while getting dunked on by Vegas like it was a street fight. Jamie Benn still thinks vibes and cross-checks win cups. And Tyler Seguin's contract might outlive the franchise. Their fans are passionate, loud, and always convinced this is the year, despite watching the same script since Mike Modano had frosted tips. Roope Hintz is elite when healthy. Jason Robertson is a sniper, and Jake Ottinger is either a brick wall or a shadowed window pane. No in between. Dallas has all the tools, but in crunch time, they play like they're stuck in traffic on I-35. The Stars shine bright until the lights get too bright. The Wild are the NHL's kings of perpetual mediocrity. Not bad enough to tank, not good enough to contend, just eternally trapped in the mushy middle. They've never made it past the second round, yet every year the fanbase fires up the hope machine like it's a new season of Survivor. Cap Hell Edition. They spent $15 million in dead cap space just to buy out 2 aging guys who still haunt their playoff runs. Their entire brand is gritty, hard to play against, which is code for boring and predictable. Kirill Kaprizov is a human highlight reel trapped in a system designed to turn excitement into dust. He's surrounded by overpaid third-liners, aging grinders, and defensive men who treat shooting like a special occasion. With Marc-Andre Fleury finally retired, the crease is now protected by vibes, duct tape, and hope. And somehow, they're still capped out until the end of time, thanks to those glorious Parise and Suter buyouts. Minnesota calls itself the state of hockey, but their NHL team plays like it's afraid to offend anyone by winning too hard. Every season is the same. Decent regular season run, emotional investment, and a first-round exit so predictable you could set your watch to it. The fans whisper, maybe next year, like it's a prayer. But in Minnesota, next year never shows up. The Predators are country music's favorite hockey team. All boots, bangers, and no banners. Smashville talks loud, throws catfish, and treats every playoff win like it's a Stanley Cup parade. But behind the gold jerseys and honky-tonk hype is a team that peaked in 2017 and has been spinning its wheels ever since. Every year, they flirt with being dangerous, and every year they bow out quietly, while the fans scream about grit like that's ever raised a trophy. Roman Josi is still elite. UC Saros still plays like he's dodging bullets. And now, finally, some of the forwards are actually scoring. Philippe Forsberg dropped 40, and O'Reilly was a solid pickup. But this roster still feels like it's built out of spare parts from 3 different rebuilds. One week they look like a sleeper threat. The next they look like they forgot the puck at home. Smashville loves the party, the chants about the chants, the constant screaming. And sure, the atmosphere is electric. But being loud isn't the same as being good. The Preds are built for energy, not banners. Until they figure out how to win something that matters, they'll keep leading the league in vibes and first-round exits. The Blues spent 50 years being the NHL's punchline. Always close, always cursed, never clutch. Then in 2019, they went from dead last in January to Stanley Cup champs in June and acted like they just solved hockey. Gloria blasted on loop, Ryan O'Reilly grew a playoff beard of legend, and Jordan Binnington played like he was possessed. It was magical, it was deserved, and it was absolutely a one-time thing. Because ever since, this team has been a slow-motion implosion in blue and gold. Their front office handed out contracts like Halloween candy, and now they're stuck with a bloated cap sheet and a roster that plays like it's allergic to defense. Binnington went from brick wall to brick thrower, more likely to fight someone than stop a puck. Blues fans still talk like they're contenders, but the rest of the league sees a team desperately clinging to the high of one Flute Cup run. The parade's over. The hangover's permanent. The Jets are the NHL's great lesson in wasted potential. They've had elite talent. Scheifele, Wheeler, Hellebuck, Laine, Connor, and still managed to accomplish absolutely nothing. One deep playoff run in 2018, and they've been coasting on that goodwill ever since. This is a team that constantly plays like it's stuck in airport security. No direction, no urgency, just delays. Every offseason, it's big changes coming, and every season it's the same lukewarm mess with a fresh coat of denial. Their fan base is loyal, passionate, and completely trapped. You can't leave. There's nowhere else to go. The arena's loud, but the team is quiet when it counts. Hellebuck stands on his head while the rest of the team forgets how to play defense. And somehow, Rick Bowness became the face of the franchise's vibe. Tired, fed up, and just trying to make it to the end. Winnipeg doesn't rebuild. It just stalls, permanently. The Ducks used to be scary. Pronger, Niedermeyer, Getzlaff, Perry. A nightmare team built on muscle, chaos, and cup runs. Now, they're a daycare for prospects with a losing streak problem. They've been rebuilding since 2018 and still haven't figured out how to play defense without turning it into a comedy sketch. Their power play is a disaster. Their locker room vibes are questionable, and every year they trot out a new jersey hoping fans forget the scoreboard exists. Trevor Zegras was supposed to be the future. Instead, he's an Instagram highlight in a franchise that can't win 30 games. Mason McTavish has potential. Leo Carlsson might be a star, but it's all buried under a pile of losses and trust the process speeches. Anaheim fans are hanging on by nostalgia and a thread, waiting for something, anything to click. Right now, the only thing clicking is the lottery simulator. The Ducks aren't just rebuilding, they're decomposing. The Flames are the NHL's kings of chaos. Always one bad month from a rebuild and one hot streak from pretending it isn't necessary. They win just enough to stay delusional and lose just enough to stay irrelevant. Every year, it's the same story. Talent on paper, drama in the locker room, and a coaching carousel that spins like a roulette wheel. Gaudreau ghosted them. Tkachuk bailed, and they got Huberdeau in return, which was like trading a sports car for a bus pass. His contract might be the longest-running horror movie in Alberta. Calgary fans are loyal but tired. Tired of mediocrity, tired of almosts, and tired of waiting for the team to pick a direction. One season they're cup sleepers, the next they're flaming wreckage. They don't rebuild, they just reshuffle, hoping something magically works. But nothing sticks. Not the stars, not the coaches, not even the identity. The flames aren't burning bright. They're just flickering, waiting for someone to either fan the fire or put it out. The Oilers are hockey's ultimate paradox. They have the best player on earth and still find ways to embarrass themselves. Connor McDavid is a cheat code stuck in a broken machine. Leon Draisaitl could be a franchise cornerstone anywhere else. In Edmonton, he's just another guy forced to carry a roster with no breaks. The power play is deadly, the defense is liability, and the goaltending is a live-action horror film. Every playoff run ends with a meltdown, a scapegoat, and a new excuse. It's not a cup window, it's a house of cards. And yet the fanbase still talks like the dynasty's already here. Oilers Twitter sings between parades and panic every 48 hours. The front office keeps duct taping holes and praying McDavid bails them out again. They've wasted a decade of his prime and might waste another if they don't figure it out fast. Edmonton doesn't need depth or balance or a system. They need a miracle. Because if this core flames out, you're looking at the biggest failure in NHL history. The Kings were once the NHL's ultimate buzzkill, a relentless, heavy, soul-crushing machine that dragged you through 7 games and left you wondering what sport you just played. 2 cups in 3 years, and they earned every gritty, grinding inch. But since then, they've been chasing the ghost of 2014 with a mix of aging vets, front office panic moves, and a depth chart that looks great on paper until the puck drops. This is a team that rebuilt without ever admitting it, then tried to contend without ever being ready. They have talent. Kopitar still leading the charge at 87 years old, Doughty yelling at clouds, and a prospect pool that's supposed to be elite, but it's all dragged down by inconsistent goaltending and playoff performances that disappear faster than a celebrity in the crowd. Every year the Kings say, "Watch out, we're back." Every year the hockey gods respond, "No you're not." LA wants another Hollywood ending, but lately, all they've been filming is first-round exits. The Sharks used to be the NHL Kings of almost. Always good, always dangerous, and always choking when it mattered most. Thornton, Marleau, Pavelski. They built a core that was dominant for a decade and never got it done. The 2016 Cup Final was their peak, and they've been tumbling down the mountain ever since. Losing talent, losing games, and now losing relevance. The worst part? They didn't rebuild. They decayed. Slowly, publicly, like a dead whale washing ashore. Now, they're an AHL team wearing NHL jerseys. The arena's half full, the roster's half baked, and the vibes are fully depressing. They've got no goaltending, no scoring, and contracts that might outlive the league. San Jose fans are loyal, but at this point, it feels like penance. The Shark Tank used to be feared. Now it's just where good players go to disappear. The Kraken arrived with a killer name, slick branding, and a city starving for hockey. And then they drafted like they were picking players out of a phone book. Their first season was a glorified expansion seminar on how not to build a roster. Year 2, magic. A surprise playoff run. Vibes through the roof. And fans thinking they were about to become the next Vegas. Year 3, right back to reality. And that reality was slow, sloppy, and completely forgettable. There's no star power, no identity, and no season to believe this team is anything more than painfully average. Matt Byner's disappeared. Shane Wright's development is a coin toss. And if the team has a plan, they must have left it at Climate Pledge Arena's compost station. Seattle fans are loud and loyal. They deserve better than a franchise still trying to figure out what a power play is. The Kraken were supposed to rise from the depths. Instead, they're floating aimlessly, waiting for someone to steer the ship. The Canucks are NHL's greatest tragic comedy. Every time they look ready to take the leap, they trip over their own shoelaces and fall face first into another existential crisis. The Sedins gave them a golden era of beautiful passing and brutal heartbreak, and they've been spiraling ever since. Their front office treats the salary cap like a suggestion, and somehow they're always rebuilding and going for it at the same time. 2011 still haunts the city, not just for losing Game 7, but for the flaming garbage that followed, both figuratively and literally. Now they've got Elias Pettersson playing like an alien, Quinn Hughes skating like a ghost, and Thatcher Demko trying to save a roster that gives up 40 shots a night. And still, it feels like the whole thing could collapse any second. The fans are smart, loud, and one blown lead away from storming Rogers Arena with pitchforks. The Canucks are hockey's ultimate tease, good enough to believe, cursed enough to know better. Every year is the year, until it isn't. The Golden Knights showed up, made the Stanley Cup final in year 1, and instantly acted like they'd invented hockey. They skipped the whole suffering part of being a fan base and went straight to high-stakes trades, big-name signings, and cutting players like bad poker hands. Loyalty? Please. This team would trade your childhood dog if it meant one extra round win. And somehow, it worked. They won the Cup in 2023, proving you don't need history, just money, drama, and a ruthless GM with a god complex. Vegas fans are loud, proud, and blissfully unaware of how much everyone else hates them. The team treats the cap like a rumor, the injured reserve like a cheat code, and the playoffs like their personal playground. They're not here to make friends. They're here to roll the dice, rob your stars, and hoist another banner in front of a nightclub. The Golden Knights didn't break the NHL. They just read the rules, laughed, and went all in anyway. So yeah, every team has history. Every fan base has scars. Maybe you're clinging to one miracle run from 20 years ago. Maybe your team just traded their best player for a 6th-round pick and an expired Gatorade bottle. Either way, you're not alone. Because in the NHL, the highs are fleeting and the suffering is eternal.